Hola, mujeres. Welcome back to another episode of Dos por Latinas. Today, we're sitting down with someone who truly embodies what this podcast is all about, Jennie López. Jennie is a powerhouse Boricua who has led in major Fortune 500 companies, danced on global stages, raised a beautiful family, and still finds the time to lift others up by being 100% authentically ella. She's a mom, author, speaker, and former NFL cheer captain. Yes, you heard that right. She she built her life and career by embracing every part of who she is, her cultura, her voice, her sparkle, her unicorn horn. Jennie reminds us that we don't have to shrink ourselves to fit into anyone's mold. Our cultura, our Spanglish, our ganas, that's where the magic lives. So ponte cómoda, grab your cafecito or vinito, and join us for a conversation full of consejos, inspiración, and real talk with Jennie López. Welcome to our podcast, Jennie.
Thank you for having me. I've been looking forward to this podcast for so long because I just love you, ladies. I love you. That's why I reach out to both of you, and I love your energy. Yay!
Thank you. Okay, so we have a lot of questions for you today. So we want to go ahead and get started because we don't have a lot of time, right? And then we'll lose people if we go and continue to talk on and on and on. So before we dive into the questions, though, lo primero que te quiero preguntar is, like, can you share a little bit about your background? I know I said a little bit about you during the intro, but the things that you want our audience to know about you, your book, and about your identity and being Latina.
Of course. Well, I'm from Puerto Rico, and a lot of people are saying, why did you go to Indiana? And we were talking about that right before we started recording the show. And I came here for grad school, and I wanted to go back to home after that. But then life had other plans for me, so I stay in Indiana since then. So I've been now is I half of my life in Puerto Rico and half of my life here. And if you find me in social media, it's under Intentional Unicorn, which is the name of my book. And a lot of people say, man, this lady really likes unicorns. And that's not the thing. Unicorn for me is more of a metaphor because believe it or not, and you mentioned a little bit, right? I had a dual career. And when you said that I was working in Fortune 500, I actually was a nerd. Like I'm a chemical engineer, master's, bachelor's, everything. And I grew up in Fortune 500. And the cool thing is that, like they say, like I was able to climb the ladder. And the reason I share this is because it probably is going to come later in the questions. But in parallel, I was a professional dancer. So it could not be any more apart, right? And then a lot of people say, oh, that must be cool. But honestly, I always felt like a unicorn that was sticking out for the wrong reasons. Because people will say, oh, you are too bubbly for an engineer. Or in the dancing arena, they will say you're too nerdy for a dancer. And I always tried to hide that horn because I thought it was playing against me. And when I finally realized that my horn was like myself, right? My uniqueness, my competitive advantage, then I started to be very intentional with it and things started to click. So yes, I was able to be successful in both being a mom and now a business owner. So I can't wait to have the discussion, but that's why it's Intentional Unicorn.
Thank you so much. I love it. And for you guys, get the book and you'll be able to see her drawing.
That is so true.
Just doing it some fun. So you emphasize being authentic self in your career. And in a world where many of us feel pressure to code switch, which many of us probably don't even know that we're doing it, or to fit in, that's more of the thing that we understand, fit in. How can we start embracing our true selves without fear?
Yeah, and it took me a while, to be honest with you, probably longer than I should. And that's why I wrote the book, because it should not take this long. But honestly, that was me too. Like I code switched so hard that I lost myself. And it was because of what the feedback, and I don't know if you can see it or you can, if I'm on video or not, but I'm doing quotation marks because the feedback was what I felt very superficial about my English, or that I didn't dress like an engineer, which I still don't know what that meant because I was a process engineering in a manufacturing floor, pharmaceutical manufacturing floor. So I could not even wear makeup at times or jewelry or dresses. But I always joke because then I look around and I say, okay, then I must be doing something wrong. And I said, oh, I'm wearing too many colors. So I'm going to be like everybody else. So that way I can look like an engineer. And I changed all my wardrobe to white, black, and gray. And then one time my mom was visiting me from Puerto Rico y ella abrió el closet y dijo, nena, ¿qué te pasó? Parece que vas para un funeral. Like it looks like you're going to a funeral, right? Because I just changed so drastically. And I just lost myself in the feedback because people will say, oh, you smile too much. One time they say, hey, when you go to that meeting, it's very important, Jenny. So you have to let your Latina out, like leave your Latina out. Don't bring your Latina with you. They would tell me I don't look smart. They would tell me I empower employees too much. And every time I got this kind of feedback, I tried to please because I thought there was something wrong with me. And then the more I got lost, the more my performance suffered. So I was not a top performer anymore because I tried to please everybody. And both of you know that when you try to please everybody, you please nobody, nadie. And then I just lost everything. I lost my bubbliness. And then finally I said, goodness, Jenny, what are you doing? Because when you do your best work is when you're your bubbly self, because that's what people connect with, your energy. And then I say, screw these, right? I'm just going to be the best me because that's when I do my best work. And then to your question, Rosibel, was it easy? No, especially when you're the only female, the only Latina. But I think what I found very powerful is finding a meaningful why. So it was not about me anymore because for a hot second I said, oh, but I cannot do it because I don't have a role model, which it was true. But then I asked myself, what if I become that role model for other people? That you can be a Latina, you can be a woman, you can be a mom, and still be a very successful executive leader. And that was my North Star. And every time I doubted myself, I say, hey, it's not about you anymore. You're opening doors to somebody else, next generation or others, right, around you. And I love that. And that's what gave me energy to keep going. And I'm glad I did it because then I just became me and things aligned and worked out very well.
I love how you said that, kind of like you reflected and said, well, I don't have that other person that I could look up to help me, do those things. But you know what? I'm going to be that person so that I can help other Latinas or, just other people of color be themselves, their authentic selves, so they can also succeed and not have to change who they are to be able to get to where they want to get. So I love that you kind of like changed that perspective and you felt like, no, I'm going to do it myself.
Yeah. And the thing is that I think a lot of people fear to do that, Jatna, because they say, oh, I'm not perfect. Well, guess what? Nobody is. Like, you're not perfect and nobody is. That's the cool thing about being authentic. You're just you. And there's only one version of you, so you're not competing with anybody else. And people connect with rawness. And you don't have to be perfect. You just have to be you, one step at a time, one day at a time.
100%. So you talk about intentionality.
Yes.
What are some intentional habits or daily practices you recommend for those trying to align with their purpose, whatever that may be?
Ooh, I love that. I think if you hear me, I talk a lot about superpowers. And I think really understanding what your superpowers are is something that is going to help you strategically long term and also when you say day to day. So I'll give you an example. When I talk about superpowers, are the top one, two, or three things, no more, because otherwise you start diluting yourself, right? So, ¿cuáles son la destreza número uno, dos o tres, no more, that you operate at your best, like that's your jam, right? And that's how you can help others. And you focus on cultivating those through your personal brand, through your social media brand, through how you articulate who you are, because you're not your role. Like you're not, I am the director of this, or I am an engineer in here. No, who you are as a leader and how you help people. You start building that, and over time, you start building a brand that attracts opportunities instead of being you like, ay, por favor, escógeme a mí, like, please pick me, right? You don't want to beg, you attract. And then the same thing, something that I do, I'm very structured in how I approach my day to day. And even the day before, and I don't know if people are watching or not, but I have like my own journal. And the first thing that I start is with the intention of the day. And it's, okay, today, and I actually write it the night before. No, like, oh, let me sit down here con mi tacita de café, ¿qué es lo que vamos a hacer hoy? No, like I do it the night before, and then I know what I want to do, right? So for example, today is I am opening opportunities. So I'm being very intentional in how I'm unlocking those opportunities for my goals. And every time that intention may change, or maybe today I want to show with my superpowers at 100 because I have an important meeting and I wanted people to know who Rosibel is and how Rosibel can help at her best. So those are the two. One takes time, and then ones that you can do it on a daily basis.
Love that. I hope you guys are taking notes. I already wrote, you don't want to beg, you want to attract. And it's so true. Like we always hear like, oh, well, just be yourself. But then like the people in my corporate life, I work with entrepreneurs and I tell them like so many people sell the same product that you sell. But why are people like customers, why are they going to choose you? And that's because of who you are, because of your personal brand, like how you guys connect, how you guys, just say like, I'm going to buy this same product I could buy from Jennie. I'm going to buy it from Hilsibet because I connect with Hilsibet. Like she's not begging me to purchase this product. Like we have a authentic connection. So I'm so glad that you're explaining that because it's so true. Like people like tend to overthink it. Like, oh, but what is it being myself? It's just being you.
You, yeah, absolutely. Being you.
But I know me personally dealing with confidence for many years, even though I'm still being told to work on it, but I have evolved a lot. And I would always think like, oh, pero how am I going to be myself? Because I have to work on this, and that. But then I've noticed that, like you said, those are my superpowers. Like me being sometimes too observative and then choosing when to speak up or being kind or too emotional, like those are my superpowers because that is who makes me instead of me thinking that was a weakness of mine. So sharing, guys, like here, Jennie, we're always vulnerable. I always tend to share my vulnerable side because that's what I feel like this space has created for us and those Latinas is that there's so many people are not alone out there. And I used to think I was alone. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, no, I'm not.
Yes.
So thank you so much for sharing. I just wanted to add. I feel like it's a great segue because the question is like, how do you handle moments of self-doubt, imposter syndrome, or fear of taking up space?
How much time do you have? I'm joking. It's one of my favorite subjects and one that I work with my clients in a lot of depth. But let's start with what you said, Rosibel, because you were talking about confidence, right? And how to work on that and embedding your superpowers to that. The cool thing that I have found through myself and also working with my clients is that when you own your superpowers, it gives you confidence. So for example, energy and strategy are two of my superpowers. I'm sharing them with you. So that will help me a lot because, for example, if I was in corporate, like going to the corporate example, and I was at one of these meetings that you see a lot of high executives and people higher than you, usually that's very, what's the word? Tienes como que el miedo, no? Like it's very, what's the word that I'm looking here?
Intimidating.
Intimidating. Yes, Jadna, intimidating, right? And we tend to make ourselves small because our hearts start palpitating. And what if what I said is wrong? And is that going to be the end of my career? You just have to think about, okay, if I'm here, it's because I got invited here. What's the problem to solve? It's not about Jennie or Jatna or Rosibel anymore, right? And how can I help with my superpowers? So even in these meetings, if people will be just going around in circles, I would just raise my hand and say, hey, would you mind if I start just writing down things because I'm good strategic and with strategy? And then I just help with one of my superpowers of how to help facilitating, but also driving strategy, right? If it was a meeting that was all monotone at 6 a.m. and everybody's just dragging, then I'm like, okay, how can I help? Insert energy, Jennie. And sometimes people will say, I just look in the calendar invite. If Jennie's there, I don't need coffee this morning, right? But be intentional, but not to be, I just want to be loud and bring, it's just how do I insert energy to help with what this meeting is about? So it's being intentional with the superpowers, but it's not about me. It's about how can I help with my superpowers? So that's one aspect that I wanted to share. And one is that we need to think that this like thought generating machine that we have, right? It's so old. In the whole time is saying is there to protect us from this like, big lion or tiger that is about to attack us. And every time you go outside of your comfort zone and try something new, it's going to sense that you're scared. And then it's going to be like, I'm here to protect you, Jatna. And then it's going to start whispering, who do you think you are, Jatna? You're not enough. And no, you have to go back to your place. You don't belong there, because it's protecting you, but it's not really protecting you. It's keeping you small. So if you don't own your thoughts, they're going to own you to keep doing the same thing that you were programmed to do since you were a kid. So it takes work, but you have to be intentional in like reprogramming that thought generating machine and implanting new beliefs and new thoughts that are going to help you move forward and not keeping you back and small.
I love that. I love that. Yes, because that happens a lot, to be honest. Like when we, as the being the only one, you know, or the only Latina in spaces where, you know, the majority are like Caucasian or, you know, other people.
Yeah.
It tends to be difficult for us to, that creeps, the whole imposter syndrome thing creeps in, and you're just like, what am I doing here? Like, what? I'm the only one here. Like, what do I have to, que yo tengo que aportar? And so it gets overwhelming, and then you just don't know what to do. So having those thoughts, right? Like what you said, like, okay, don't let that, you know, scare you. Like you can do this. You got this. I love how you kind of like, you know, put that out there so we can think through that.
And so, Jana, can I say something? Because I know we all have been there. And honestly, to be honest with you, the more you grow, the more you continue to be in that, right? Because every time you grow, you are outside of your comfort zone, and all those things are going to come back. So the best thing you can do is prepare yourself proactively. Okay, tomorrow I'm going to have this important meeting, or tomorrow I'm going to be meeting so-and-so. What can I apport? Because there's always apport. I don't know. I think I just came up with a new English word. What can I bring? What can I bring? How can I help? And yeah, what do you say? Okay, you're a Latina. What am I doing here? Okay, you're bringing a different perspective, a different culture. You're bringing your grit. You're bringing all your experiences up to that day. So there's always that each of us can always bring in every situation.
Thank you. I love that.
Yes,
I think I hope everyone can remember that whenever their next, you know, they have their next meeting or the next thing where they have to come in, and they're the only person that looks different there.
Yes, that's good. That's a blessing.
So repeat it, Jenny, in case someone missed it.
Yes. Oh my goodness. That was so good. Let's rewind that again. I don't know if I'm going to say it the same way.
All right, everyone, go back 30 seconds.
No, the thing is always prepare, right? Because sometimes if you're not prepared, that's the worst thing. That prepare for that meeting, prepare for that one-on-one, and then always think, oh, how can I help? And then knowing that what you bring is your grit, is your experience, all the experiences that you have up to that moment, is your unique perspective, your culture. You were always thinking in dualities, right? We know this culture, but we know our own. And that's a superpower. That's an edge that not everybody has. So there's so many things that you can do. I was actually talking to one of my clients, and she said, yeah, Jenny, but these people are like high up executives, and oh my goodness, I feel so small. They know it all. And I said, you know what? The higher they go, the more they lose contact with the real world. So what you bring is that you know the feedback of what's happening in reality, and that's what you can help them, right? So there's always something that you can help them. So think about how can you help, and put yourself in their shoes, or in the shoes of whatever, the meeting, right? What's the outcome? That's the number one question I always have. That's the outcome, and how can I help?
Love that.
Love that. I know, Jana, you're going to ask me the next question, but I feel so identified because, again, in my corporate life, I never want to speak to execs because I say I'm just wasting their time. What do I know that they don't know? And my upline is like, well, the same thing you said, the higher they're up, you know, he's a VP now. So he wants to know what you're doing down there on the court where, you know, and I'm like, and I'm just like, what am I going to say? That I had a meeting and that this is how it went. He's like, yeah. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's such a waste of time. But I'm going to add something on here that I just feel that as a Latina, I don't have the privilege as una mujer americana, right?
Okay.
Una blanquita, because I'm like, they could go in there and talk about how was your weekend and how was the sport game? And I'm like, and I'm not about the small talk. And I always do that comparison. So I wonder, like, if some people are listening, if you feel that way, you're not alone, because that's how I feel. Like, it's so easy for them to go and talk about what they thought about the show last night. And I feel like if I go and talk to an executive about that, I'm wasting their time. But that person feels privileged that they're not wasting their time. So I just wanted to throw that out there too. That came to mind.
I love that. That's a good example. You know that one time, oh my gosh, you're bringing me back to like when I started as a process engineer, because I would go with my headphones and just be in my little cube and like just, and then all my colleagues were male and they're talking about the sports of the weekend or politics, which are two topics that I don't like to talk about. So I'm like, that's wasting time. I'm going to go back to my But the thing is that I got feedback, Rosibel, that I era como quien se cree ella. Ella se cree más que nosotros because she feels that she's too good for these conversations. And I'm like, oh goodness, that's not me at all. But that was my brand. And once that start impacting your brand, right? And then you have two choices being like, that's not true, and fight it, right? That's not true. That's not who I am. And then you start getting this like conflicto, no? Like conflict, like me versus them. But then I'm like, you know what? We're all here together for the same reason, right? So obviously I need to connect with these guys. So what I did, Rosibel, in that example, I had cafecitos with each of them and say, hey, let's get to know each other. And then I inserted magically, I don't like to talk about politics and sports. I like to talk about this, right? But in a really friendly way. And then I say, hey, it's not me versus them. At the end of the day, you are as strong as your weakest player. We are a team. So then you start thinking about, okay, how can they connect with you better? How can you connect with them? And then if it's small talk, okay, then let's do something that there's a win-win for everybody, right? So there's a way to do it, but I don't know why you brought me to that example, why I share that. But I've been there, like you brought me back to my process engineering first feedback.
But you know what? I like that though, because you took, even though they had a different perspective, like a perception about you and who you were, you were like, you know what? I'm not going to fight it. I'm just going to approach it different, and I'm going to meet with them. And so they can get to know my true self. Yes. And knowing that I don't talk about those things. Like I'm happy to connect with you and talk about and get to know each other and all that, but we don't have to touch those topics. We can do something else. So I love that you took a different approach.
Yeah. And it's because if you don't own your narrative, somebody else will, right? So don't fight it, but you have to be intentional with it. The other one that followed me for the longest time, oh, Jennifer, you're too nice. Like, I don't know if I can trust you with a real job. You're too nice. You're too nice. And then I will be, okay, I'm nice. Then I must be doing something wrong. And then I say, screw it. I'm nice, but I'm going to own it. And then I said, like, last time a VP told me that, and I said, you know what? It's not that I'm too nice. It's that I care. And that is one of my really strong superpowers, why I'm such an authentic leader and why I've been able to transform organizations in manufacturing, in the business, and now HR. I own it. That's my narrative. You're not going to make it for me.
That's true. Yes. I love that. So Jenny, there's a question here about, because we talked a little bit about this within the other questions, but what are some reflecting questions our listeners can ask themselves today to go back and reconnect with their most authentic self if they're already at a space or at a stage where they're kind of losing that because they're now trying to fit in?
Yeah. Oh, wow. I actually, when I talk about this, because a lot of people are like, how do I know? How can I find myself again? And honestly, we can go into a lot of reflective questions, but then I came up with something about like, let's build a map, right? MAP, a map. And then the M is for always think about, is this me or is it a mask? Like that's the first one, right? Is this me or a mask? So, sometimes, like we behave a certain way in front of the executives and a certain way when we're with our friends and having fun, and a certain way with our kids or at church or depending the scenario. There's no reason why there has to be like 7 different versions of Jatna, right? It can be just Jatna all the time. So is this a mask that I'm putting out there because I think that's what people want me to behave, or is this me? So that's the M, right? And then the A, and I love to ask this question also, even when we're discovering superpowers, is alive. Like, when am I the most alive? Because when you feel easy, like right now, having this conversation, it doesn't feel like work. Like I feel we're just at the coffee shop, just like getting to know each other. And I absolutely love it. So, because we're all in our authentic element here, we're not putting a mask, we're alive, we're at flow. This is our jam. So that's another, when am I alive? And that's going to be an indication about who you truly are and how you show up. And then one that I added was the P, right, for map. And the P is for pause. I feel, what was that song like? Pause. Now you to sing and keep dancing. But it's really reflection, because one thing that when I started talking about authenticity, a lot of people misunderstood that it was something that it was stagnant. This is the way I am, and I am this, and I am that. So really pause and reflect about what is not serving you anymore, right? Because we continue to grow. That's the beauty about life. We continue to grow in our journey. And then maybe we grow up with a limiting belief about, I'm not good with numbers. And you keep using that because it's been your broken record for I don't know how long, right? I'm not good with numbers. I'm not good with. Pause. Wait, is that you anymore? Is that going to serve you well for the big goal that you have? So it start morphing into identity, which is another topic that I love to talk about. But really pause. Okay, is this me? Like the friends that you had growing up, maybe you have outgrown them. I'm not saying that you're better than them. We're just in different paths, right? Different mindsets, different journeys, different dreams. So wait, pause. Is this me anymore? Does this feel authentic anymore? Or that was just a previous chapter of my life and I need to grow? So that will be something simple instead of giving you a whole journal about reflection questions, but it's really having that map to find yourself again. So is this me or a mask? And then the A was like, when do I feel the most alive? And then the P is to pause and evaluate, because life is a journey of growth.
I love that, Jenny. I always, I tend to speak a little bit about personal branding to some people when I say, what is it that you do that hours could go by and you didn't even notice it? And that reminded me of when you said, that's when you feel the most alive.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes. Oh my gosh, there's so much to take away from this combo.
Yeah.
But I love that, the map. So a little bit on, Latina leaders, but also entrepreneur or professional, or sometimes we're like you, all in one, right? But for those listening right now, what's your message if she feels like she's hiding parts of herself to succeed? I know you've thrown out nuggets, but if there's really something holding them back.
Oh, goodness. Honestly, two things. One is for you, why are you keeping yourself small? Who wins at the end of the day, right? You don't win, and the people that you're helping, they don't win either, because then you're keeping yourself small and stuck in what is comfortable. So one thing that I have to work a lot on, but now I'm addicted to, is this whole thing about continue to push outside of my comfort zone, because you don't do it for the thing that you get at the end. Because, for example, Rosibel, let's say, for example, your dream is to become a president of blah, blah, blah. I don't know what blah, blah, blah is, but, and that's your dream. That's your dream. Awesome. But once you get there, you are celebrating for 5 hot seconds. Yay, I got it. And then what? Right? So there's no milestone. Success is the growth. So that's something that for me is just get comfortable with breaking outside of the comfort zone, because of the person you become. And because of the person you become, not the goal, the person you become by achieving the goal, and everybody who benefits from it. And then kind of talking about everybody who benefits from it, think about the impact you have by doing that. You're unlocking, people say, break the ceiling, right? But you are unlocking doors that perhaps were closed to other people that look like you before, including your kids, the next generation. So for me, that big why that I talk just going back to our first question, is so meaningful, right? It's the why. You know how hard it was to leave the corporate world, guys? I was a VP. I had a cushy job, right? Is that how you say cushy job? Great salary. That's what people think is the dream, right? Benefits and all of that. But I fell in love with my passion of empowering the next generation and including my kids. And then I said, well, maybe when my kids grow out of the out of the house, right? And no, they're teenagers now, they're watching, and how powerful it will be for them to see their mom going for her dreams and crushing it, right? So that drove me actually to make the decision sooner than what I thought I was going to make the decision. And is it difficult? Yes. But is it like liberating and there's no ceiling to the growth? Yes. And that's what's really meaningful and the impact I'm having on my kids. So, gosh, I can talk about this forever, but hopefully that helped you a little bit with your question.
Yes, it did so much. Really, really hit me personally to the core. Because it's always about that. I think, I don't know, I'm a millennial, but I still think in our generation, and coming from a Latino parent, that we see them go through things and all the sacrifices, and then they say, well, this is what's right. Like, this is a path you need to follow. And then you're like, oh my gosh, how would I give up, like you said, a VP job, a bougie job? I'm getting paid. I'm so privileged. So many people would kill to have the position and the lifestyle I have, but I'm not fulfilled. I'm not from the map. I'm not alive. Like, I'm just following what I'm being told to do, and that's the right thing to do because that's just safe and secure. So I'm really glad you took the bold step, and especially when you said I'm gonna teach this generation, which is kids, which it's always, everything we do, it always goes back to a why, those goals and a why, and that's being authentic. Like, it doesn't matter what other people think. It's like that's me. Like, that's who I want to be. So thank you so much. All right, Jatna.
And also, to your point, you also have to do what's best for you and your family at the end of the day. So, and that's what you want, right? Like, you want your children to see that you went for those goals, so that when it's their turn to do that, they don't feel like, oh no, like I didn't have a role model. Like, my parents didn't get there, so therefore I won't either.
Yes.
So you kind of have to show them that it is achievable. Sí se puede.
Exacto. Ellos y de todo el mundo.
And
you serve like a role model even for your friends, right? Have I figured it out? No, I'm figuring it out. And that's part of the journey. But once I know, I can teach it.
Yes. Yeah. And like you said, nobody's perfect, right? Like, is it perfect? No, but I'm doing it.
Like, I'm just here thinking, Jennie is empowering people. Like you said, my passion to empower, and it's just like, just people watching you and listening to you, it's already empowering. It's like effortless for you. So thank you for
being your most authentic self, for sure.
100%. 100%.
So, Jennie, our podcast focuses a lot on empowering women to take care of themselves. So self-care is it's like something that we all, especially as Latinas, because our parents, our moms never really, it's something that they never really took into account and did for themselves. And so we try, at least like for us as millennial moms and working moms, to make sure that we empower other women to take the time, right, for themselves, whatever that looks like, whatever that may look like for them.
Yes.
So what does self-care means to you, and how do you make it a priority?
I love it. I talk about this, about making sure that you fill your cup, and that's a chapter in the book. But think about you of a vessel. I say cup, but just think about a vessel, right? And a lot of people think that money and time is the only resources that we have, right? But think about energy. Energy is even more precious because nothing good comes from an empty cup. And as Latinas, right, I don't know if you can see it, but I'm holding a cup. We tend to pour love and prioritize everybody ahead of us, like our kids, our parents, our colleagues, el pollo, el gato, el perro, everybody, even the people we don't like, we prioritize it by putting energy on them. And then we barely make it, right? And then at the end of the day, and I'm not going to do it because my cup actually is full right now, both cups, but at the end of the day, when that cup is empty, there's nothing coming out of it. And that's exactly what happened to us. We're in burnout. We are tired. We're exhausted, right? And nothing good comes from an empty cup. Like, when was the last time that you achieved something amazing from like being like, oh, I'm so tired, right? Like, it just doesn't happen. So the key is like how to keep the cup full. No, like, oh, I can wait for vacation in 9 months so I can fill my cup. No, it's too late, because by then your cup is like drained, right? So it's how to keep it full, doing something that you enjoy that actually truly fills your cup, but it has to be authentic to you. So for me, it's dancing, it's painting, and it's working out. So these are the things that for me are a must. And I take 1 or 2 dance classes a week. I was a professional dancer, so I want to keep that. Sometimes you see me dancing in LinkedIn and people are like, this is not TikTok. I'm like, well, keep scrolling because that's what I do. That's what I love. I feel, myself, and I am empowering. It's not just about dancing. And then I usually do a painting every other month. And then what else? And I work out every single day. So that's how I fill my cup. And just very quick, a lot of people think that I just don't have time. And then my pushback is like, if something bad happens to somebody who you love, let's say your kids, right? And they say, Mom, like I really need you here. I need you to be present. I'm sure you will figure out a way, right? You get creative, you get resourceful, and you're there for your kids. So then my pushback is like, we need to learn to love ourselves the same way that we love these other people. So they're watching, right? They're also learning. Whatever you're doing right now, that's how your kids are going to be like, oh, that's how my mom did it. She was burned out, so I need to be burned out. No, but you don't want that for your kids. She was alive. She worked out. She danced. So that's the way to do things. And then the other very quick thing is that a lot of, especially moms, they think, oh, that's just selfish, right? Like I should be in every practice. I should be in every rehearsal. I should be. But again, you are at your best when your cup is full. So if you keep prioritizing everybody else, you're actually not prioritizing them. When you prioritize you prioritize the people you love, right? Because then you're being very intentional in keeping your best self full. So then you can love and you can lead and you can care at your best.
Thank you so much, Jennie. When we started this podcast, it was around that time when I finally started to understand what is self-care. Yes. I would go and to my corporate job and my boss would say, what did you do this weekend? And I would tell her everything I did. And she would say, what did you do for yourself? And I never understood that question. I would say, what do you mean? And it was, talking to John and also creating this space on those Latinas. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I always did stuff for others and not for myself. Like I never made myself a priority. So thank you so much for sharing that. It's not being selfish. When you make yourself a priority, you're making others a priority, because our kids know they say you don't have a grumpy mommy and she's always tired. Like my daughter gave me a wake up call and they're like, Mommy, you're always sleepy. Like, oh man. So for those listening, remember that saying no is not, you're not being selfish. It's just you're taking care of yourself so that you can really take care of those other people. And I like how you said, Jennie, that when someone is sick and they call you, you drop everything. So why don't we drop everything for ourselves? Like, why don't we treat that self-care time as if it's our full-time job? And that's also been something I had to think about. Like, oh, I don't have time. I do all these things. And then it's like, oh, but I make time for other things. So
yeah. And it's powerful when you do it, you actually, so we talk about kids, right? But let's talk about us as leaders in the corporate world or business owners. When you do that, you're actually being an example and you're giving permission to your employees to do the same. And it's so funny because I always had my workout times, even when I was in corporate, like I would leave at 4 p.m. unless there was an emergency, right? But like Tuesday and Thursday, I had a class to teach because I was a fitness instructor. 4 p.m. I left, right? Or 4:30, whenever I had to go to teach my class. And people are like, well, she's doing it. What can I do? And like, I've been telling you guys to prioritize yourself, being, well-being is important. And they're like, yeah, but I thought you were just saying that like every other leader. And like, no, I'm doing it, right? So when you do it, you're giving permission to other people to do the same.
Love it. Thank you so much, Jennie. So guys, I don't know you for listening, but I want to keep talking. But we want to be respectful of the time. And here we'll just close it up, Jennie, on where can the audience find your book, stay connected with you, and especially for your coaching sessions or any upcoming events that you have?
Of course, I love it. So the book is Intentional Unicorn, not international, intentional unicorn. And it's the same thing in every social media, but I love connecting in Instagram because the nature of the platform, we can be like friends, right? We can connect in DMs or IG live. You see my stories and my crazy life and I can see yours. That sounds creepy, but we can connect as friends, right? So I love Instagram. So make sure you connect in Intentional Unicorn. and just say hi and say, hey, I met you in those both Latinas, and then I have something that is about going deeper in the superpowers that I love to teach, so I'll give it to you for free. So just make sure that you say, hey, hi from, those both Latinas, and then we'll connect. And yes, and then my website is Jennie López, that's my name, JENNIE Lopez.com, and that's where you can learn about coaching, consulting, or my speaking services.
Love that. So I have so many notes for my closing, for my call to action. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like 9. I'm like, I don't know which one to choose, but I'm gonna choose with that. Love the nugget that you just threw out, Jennie, is to go on Jennie's Instagram. We'll add the link to our bio, but go right now and look up Intentional Unicorn and send her a DM. Like, don't you want to keep knowing about what are your superpowers? She's going to send you that free link for you to keep having those reflecting questions. So number 1, that's the first call to action. And yeah, because with those superpowers, like, you're going to start owning who you are, like those thoughts. You're going to be intentional. And it's maybe with just the simple of having an affirmation, like if you're saying something negative to yourself, turn it into a positive affirmation. And then also, I know that Jennie mentioned when you have that important meeting, and it doesn't matter if you don't work in corporate, it could even just be with your child or even your spouse, anyone that you're having a conversation with, think about the outcome that you want to have and how you can help. Like, I honestly felt that was super powerful, and which also goes into like owning your narrative. It's always, hey, you heard something that you know that's not you. Do like Jennie did. Let's grab a cafecito and let's tell you and teach you who I am. And I know this is another one. I hope you're out with your notebook, but the map, go back and listen to the map or go grab that book, Intentional Unicorn. It's on Amazon. You could also have it on your Kindle. So start, because Jennie has so many things, call to actions in her book. And I know she shared one of these on here with us, which is a map. And most of all, I know you got energy from Jennie. Like, remember she said, if Jennie's in a meeting, we don't need coffee, we don't need our energy drink. So I know you got energized, and I know
su energía es contagiosa. I just wanted to say that.
Gracias.
Yeah, it's like I'm sure she empowered you, inspired you to go do the thing that you were not doing or scared of to do it, because she is definitely giving that energy. And she said, hey, energy is my self-care. But she put into the way of, that's how she keeps her cup full. And it reminded me going back to that map of staying alive. So I'll stop there. I have more call to actions, but I don't want to bombard you. But again, if you're going to do anything, please go to Intentional Unicorn on Instagram and DM Jennie, connect with her, and just stay up to touch. Make sure you follow her and get that superpower to-do list from her. So thank you so very much, Jennie, for tuning in with us and the audience, and make sure to leave us a review, and also for Jennie. And I look forward to hopefully having more conversations or even a live with you, Jennie, because you have so much to share. Thank you.
Igual. Gracias por tenerme aquí.
Chicas.
Gracias.